Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, Patti Vasquez.
From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing ass says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It is Friday, and I'm so thrilled you're all here. I hope that you are heading into the weekend with some positive vibes. Let's just, grab what we can, where we can. There's a little bit of a breeze. It's not so hot. And enjoy yourselves. Find something you... Joan always ends her Fridays talking about how we need to take care of ourselves and find things that replenish our souls, and I encourage you to do that as well. And before we get started today, I do want to thank our sponsors. Thank you to our sponsors at Source Solar. Go to source.solar. Make an appointment with Peter Sorellis. Maybe it's time to get solar panels on your house or business. He will walk you through the entire process. Source.solar. I was going through some neighborhoods the other day, and I wonder how much people I was on Foster, and I saw just a nice little ranch with some solar panels. I wanted to knock on their neighbors' doors and go, you should get those too. But I think it takes one person in the neighborhood to get the ball rolling. And when you know what? You save green when you go green. So go to source.solar. Do better for the environment, your wallet, and the future. Again, that's source.solar. We want to thank our friends Patti and Jackie at Pride Coffee Roasters. That's pridecoffeeroasters.com. Put in an order for the best single origin roasted to order coffee beans you've ever had. They started out as just hobbyists. They thought, let's see if we can do this roasted coffee thing. And turns out they are incredible at small batch roasting, and they're growing. So get your orders in at pridecoffeeroasters.com. And I know people were showing their love all June, but guess what? Queer all year, baby. So go to pridecoffeeroasters.com and put your order in. We also want to thank our friends at Minocqua Brewing Company. Please visit minocquabrewingcompany.com and support the work that we all do there. There's a great marketplace today. We featured the Dugan sisters, who give you an alternative to the billionaires who run the insect repellent companies and are giving millions of dollars to MAGA. So go to the Minocqua Brewing Company marketplace and put your order in for some great. And by the way, they have a minty, like a mint bug repellent, which just sounds refreshing, and they're safe chemicals. They're better for you and the environment. So go to minocquabrewingcompany.com, find their marketplace, and if you go to their Substack, you can find today's piece on the Dugan sisters. That's Minocqua Brewing Company on Substack, and we know we have our friends watching on Minocqua Brewing Company Substack. Hi, everybody, and everyone tuning in on Facebook Live and on YouTube. And I did not tell my guest that she would be on camera, so I apologize to Judge Jill Rose Quinn. What a weird moment last week. My phone rang and I was like, oh, there's a judge on my phone. Am I late for court? How are you doing, Your Honor?
I'm doing great. I forgot. Excuse me. I forgot what an utter joy you are, Patti.
Oh, stop.
You're so awesome. You're just so great to talk to. You're so full of positive stuff. I can't say the other word. It's got to be stuff.
Crap.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And you're so full of positive stuff. I got up this morning, and by the time I was on the train, I made the mistake of opening up the New York Times on my phone.
I know.
And I saw some stuff about what things are being done by certain other things, by certain...
You can say the thing. Oh, you're a judge. You can't say the things. Oh, I see. I see what we're doing. You're a judge, and we don't have to say those things. But here's the thing. Yeah, first of all, the reason I gave you a cup of water when you came in, because it's the mantra of my show, is to stay hydrated, because this is a long one. So let's go back a little bit, because you just mentioned, we have not had the pleasure of just sitting down and chatting, and on the radio is not the. We should probably also go out and grab coffee or drinks. However, I have such fond memories of you and your wife, and of course our dear friend Tom Carmick, who ran your campaign, which is how we met in 2019.
Right.
And it's just a joy to see you, and I know how proud he was. Like, that was, if he couldn't get me elected, he was damn sure going to make sure you got elected. And that was both of you. Obviously, you carried the day with your expertise, with your background, with your passion for justice. And so congratulations. I know it's been 6 years since you won the race, and I congratulated that, but here you are.
Well, let's unpack that just a little bit. Tom
Sure.
was so wise. And of all the people that I worked with, Tom got it.
Yeah.
And I looked across at him when we were first talking about my campaign, and he went, and you can't see the nod. Well, you can see the nod.
Yeah.
So you just saw him nodding and knowing.
I got it, Matt.
Okay. Being brought back down to earth.
I remember the days when things would blow up, because we had some controversy on our campaign, and he was so angry, but he couldn't be everywhere at once, right? He had
Right.
so many fires going on. He was running like 8 campaigns, almost all of them, but mine, judicial races. So, and he had a rhythm that was his expertise, and then he had me out here on the Northwest side with all kinds of bull crap.
Yeah.
And but I just remember like how fierce he was fighting for all of us. Me,
Right.
you, Mayor Dempsey,
Yep.
Judge Dempsey
Yep.
now.
Yep.
And I mean, like, what a great legacy for you and for all of us, really,
Yeah.
is the work that he did.
Absolutely. When are you going to run again? And what are you going to run for?
I like doing this.
Yeah.
I really do. It would take a lot. I have had conversations over the last 6 years, and I do love doing this. So it was interesting to see ourselves through Tom's eyes. I think
Right.
that's a way that I think we could both put it. That's why he felt so fiercely, and he chose candidates. He didn't work with everybody, right?
Right. That's true.
Because he didn't need all that stuff.
Yeah.
So how has it been sitting on the bench?
It's been a real joy. It's been. I was telling my wife today about my day today in court, and it was a heavy day. I had 20 motions. I had 2 emergency motions. I had 2 pretrials, and for some reason, I know this is my last day. I'm taking like 3 days off next week.
Nice.
So I just, for some reason, maybe I was up because of that or what, but I just felt like I had everything going on. And one of the things that started me off was that I was explaining to a new judge what choices she might make in the future, whether or not she should go into domestic relations, as I did. And so I really felt positive during the day. And the reason I feel positive is that where I work is at the basic level of society. Everybody's got a family or some relationship that's in place of a family. I mean, even if you're in a foster home, you've got some idea, some group of people around you that's your social unit.
Right.
And so everybody knows that. And when people come in to domestic relations court, they're both they're disappointed in themselves because everybody starts a marriage thinking, oh, this is going to be good. It's going to be forever. It's going to be great. And then they disappoint each other, and that disappointment quickly turns into disappointment with themselves, and that turns into arguments and fights. And if there are kids involved, they totally lose sight of everything. And you know what? It's okay. I get it. You can do that. But you have to take the hint when someone slaps you verbally or whatever and says, look at what you got here. You focus on your kids, focus on their future, and focus on the new future you're going to start.
Right.
And so it really gives you an opportunity to make people's lives just a little bit better when I can.
That's so important. I mean, nobody wants to end up in court. This is like, having been in situations, and you talk about family court. So for folks who don't know, tell us a little bit about what family court a day might. You said you had like 20 cases and emergency rulings and things like that. But
Well,
when we hear family court, we think of like custody and we think of domestic violence, or I don't know which. That's a different courtroom altogether.
Well, domestic violence is a separate division, and there are a lot of domestic violence cases that just involve violence between people or stalking or the big thing these days is just to make someone's phone blow up with text messages.
Almost like doxing their phone kind of a thing.
Yeah, that's another thing. But it's violence between people. Now, when those people are married and there's a pending case, the domestic violence court sends those cases to us. So we handle those cases as part of our call. So we've got domestic violence. We have determination of the allocation of parental rights and responsibilities, which is what we used to call it custody. But custody sounds a little bit like servitude.
Sure, right. Who owns this person?
Yeah.
Right, that makes sense.
So it's the allocation of parental rights. And that can equally applies when people have children without getting married or people who have children within a marriage. And then we've got financial issues. In a marriage, you have to determine who's going to support the kids or how much the kids are going to get in support, how you're going to divide that up, how many days Are you going to share parenting time? Is it going to be 2 days on, 2 days off, alternating weekends? So you decide those kind of issues. You decide what the support should be. You should decide what maintenance would be. Maintenance is what we used to call alimony, but in all situations, if we don't like the name, we will just change it. It's the same thing. It's how much you pay your partner in continuing support after the marriage. And then there's a division of property. And then once people get divorced, they may have a separation or a settlement agreement, and they violate it. They go back and forth and they violate it. They don't follow up what they're going to do. They don't transfer a house. They don't sign a deed. They don't pay support. They don't do what they're supposed to do. And people come back into court and they try to enforce the terms of that agreement. So it's
it can get
wide
messy.
spectrum.
Yeah. Well, and there's so much emotion involved too. I mean, that of all the courts, I would think this is the one where there can be so much emotions.
Well, someone explained this to me. I'll give props where props are due. Michael Barrett, who's the Judge Beach's assistant, one of his deputy directors, said that the difference between domestic relations and every other court is that if you have a lawsuit, or if there's been a crime committed, or if there's been a traffic violation or something like that, you're deciding what happened in facts that have already happened.
Right.
But in domestic relations, it's going on and on and on. And so you're going to make a rule that's going to apply in an existing situation involving the relationships of people. And that dynamic, that's an amazing dynamic, because you're actually involved. You're actually, what you do today is going to play out over the weekend when someone picks up a child or someone drops a child off for parenting time.
Yeah.
So it's
and I have a friend who went through a very messy situation, and I just and she will actually forward me abusive emails so that there's a record, right? So that I whether it's and that's the thing too, is that I consider them to be the way he talks about her, the way he demeans her, and things like that. I actually asked her, because I had been in an emotionally violent relationship in my 20s, and I just that was in the 90s, so we didn't have anybody. It wasn't like texting and documenting like that and whatever. You just had your word against somebody else's. And I remember, I've said this on the air before, because you don't realize how much it affects you. And I remember just thinking, I wish he would hit me, and so I would have evidence of how he treats me. Mm-hmm. And so now I think, people should document as much as they can.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, they should. That's always helpful. And the information age can be harmful as well as helpful in terms of proving that.
Right.
People take pictures all the time of something that happens, but the problem is people are terrible photographers and filmmakers. They just don't know what they're doing. And I get a picture of somebody's hand or
so
or elbows
funny.
or something like that, and they're saying, "Look at what he's doing to me," and I can't.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's all moving very fast.
Right,
Yeah. They know what they want you to see, but they don't necessarily have what you need to see.
Exactly.
We're talking to Judge Jill Rose Quinn, and I'll tell you, we'll talk more about her career and how it's just been so long since we've seen each other. She was elected to the Cook County Circuit Court in November of 2020 and became the first openly transgender person ever elected to any office in the state of Illinois, and she's practiced law for about 37 years before she ever put on the robe. So we want to learn more about her great career and the experiences that she's had. And we're going to take a break here and talk. Oh, was Merril not answering yet? Merril Miller? Okay, well, I will. Merril, make sure your phone is available. I know you're listening, Merril. So we'll get Merril Miller, the manager of the Jefferson Park Sunday Market, on the phone with us in just a moment to update us on all the vendors and events happening this weekend at the Jefferson Park Sunday Market. Well, you'll also find our sponsor, Pride Coffee Roasters. So make sure you come and join us at the Jefferson Park Sunday Market. More in a moment on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal, broadcasting out of Chicago. Hello to our friends listening on KKNW 1150 in Seattle. Of course, our friends tuning in on our live streams, YouTube, Facebook, and now Minocqua Brewing Company. If you are on our digital platforms, please consider subscribing and sharing with your friends and family so they can join the conversation too. More in a moment. We'll be right back with more conversation.
No detours, no distractions, just bold ideas and real talk. This is Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
so much for joining us as I sit behind the microphone and push wrong buttons on a Friday. It happens once in a while, you know that. Thank you so much for joining us. We continue our conversation here on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal, KKNW 1150 in Seattle, KTNF AM 950 Minneapolis, St. Paul. And I am so thrilled to have in studio with us Judge Jill Rose Quinn. Now, do you have the opportunity to go out to the farmers markets in the area? In your communities?
Go to the farmers market in the Daily Center every Thursday.
Well, you know, in the neighborhoods, I'm just saying, I know there are communities throughout the city, maybe somewhere nearby, like Jefferson Park, that has a market every second and fourth Sunday of the month. And joining us that's where I volunteer, every second and fourth. And our market manager, Merril Miller, joins us. How you doing, Merril?
Doing okay. And what I was talking to Madam, I've got the best possible excuse ever. I missed his earlier phone call because I was so engrossed listening to you talking with the judge.
I appreciate that. No, I wish you could have. I know that you were unable to come in, but I'm trying to convince her to come to the market this weekend. I'm just saying. And
where is it?
Where Jefferson Park Sunday Market is right at Jefferson Park, Lawrence and Long. So right across from the Jefferson Park Library, post office, right across the street, you'll see us.
Okay.
And this weekend, it sounds like we're going to have a bit of a crowd before we even get started, but I don't even know if we should mention that.
Well, on the off chance any of the Porty people are listening, be aware that, your meeting time, because there's a kids' bike fest thing going on that they've organized. I only actually just found out about it today myself. It's going to be a little bit chaotic because they scheduled their meet time basically at the same time all of the vendors are still going to be setting up.
Right.
And since some of those vendors drive through the market, be aware, everybody.
Yeah, it's the Kiddical Mask for Portage Park at Jefferson Park. And I guess, they put the Sunday market on there to promote. So
yeah. I mean, at some point, I can't really, complain.
Right.
But
just want to be mindful of moving vehicles and kids on bikes is all I'm saying, everybody. While on the pedestrian paths. I'm super excited about this weekend, and because I had to miss the last one. I'll be honest with you, I cheated on you at the Skokie farmers market last weekend. I went to go see Jackie and Patti, the Pride Coffee Roasters over there, and it was fun. It wasn't anything like ours. It wasn't even in a park. It was a parking lot. So.
Yeah, it does create a different vibe when you're in a park.
Yes,
it really does. As any of the other area folks, because there's a few other markets in the general area that do parks, and it's just I'm biased. I do think it's a little bit nicer to be in the park where you've got some shade as opposed to a parking lot. When we first started our market, we were in the parking lot. Love the folks at Copernicus, but wow, they have the hottest parking lot ever, and I mean temperature-wise.
Yeah, because you have a blacktop, it radiates heat up.
Yeah.
Can I ask what kind of vendors you have?
Well, what kind of things were you looking for? Because we've got just about everything. We've got gluten-free baked goods. We've got virgin olive oil. There's produce from two different vendors. There's meat. There's eggs. There's vinegars. We're going to have our vegan egg roll person, and I know that always
so good.
Yeah, they're very good. But they are completely vegan, which calling them egg rolls seems like weird to me, but what else are you going to call them?
Right.
I don't know. There's also tea and, of course, as you mentioned, coffee. So, all kinds of
and Stamford cheese is amazing. They always have a line.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's food you can eat while you're shopping, including Tamale Express, right?
Of course. And Urban Dining League.
So
and then, of course, any of the – so we've actually got 3 bakeries, kind of, that each of them does really, really different stuff, which is why we got that many. But they all have stuff that, depending on what you're looking for, what kind of things you're into, grab something, walk around eating it. It's all good.
I love it.
Or if you want to sit down at one of the tables that we have set up at the park, you can well, okay, over by the porch area or Esther House is, Kenny Lane is going to be playing. That's where the picnic tables are. But if you're over at the other end of the park, there's going to be Stephen Goliath. Note that there is going to be a yoga class over in that general area that's right by the Higgins entrance, and that's going to be 10 till 11. So he's going to be music for the yoga class and music for people as they're walking into that space. But then as you get more into like lunch hour times and you want to just like hang out in a nice grassy space, that's a great area to hang out at. And you know, reminder to anybody that's coming out to do yoga, your mat makes a really awesome picnic blanket.
Awesome.
Just saying.
Merril, you're cutting in and out a little bit, so I just want to make sure folks know to go to the Jefferson Park Sunday Market on Facebook, on Instagram, right? Some of the other places, your website.
And the website is jeffersonparksundaymarket.com.
Excellent. I'm so excited. And by the way, I'm so jealous. I know you went swimming today, and I have got to get in the pool again. Which folks can check out that pool, the Jefferson Park pool that you swam at?
Yeah, the Jefferson Park pool, as a matter of fact, on Sunday is going to be open 11 till 7.
Oh,
so
perfect.
There's going to be a little extra traffic there.
Yeah, and it's going to be warm on Sunday, folks. So what do I tell everybody? Stay hydrated. And by the way, courtesy of Berman, Kia, and Subaru, I do have a limited number of backpacks for kids. So we've got some rainbow backpacks to hand out for the kids, and I will have those available. So if you come early, I'll be there handing those out, folks, and say hi to me, please, and say hi to Merril and all the volunteers. And if folks want to volunteer, there's also an opportunity. Oh, there's two things we need: hours for volunteering if they need to bank those, right? To let folks know how they can reach out.
Well, you can stop by at our info table. You can also send me an email at jeffersonparksundaymarket@zoho.com. We do have some socials out there that have advertised a sign-up form. I don't think I've got that connected to the website yet.
Okay.
Got to work on that, but, you know, all those have.
Oh, the judge has a question.
So wait 1 second. You have like community service volunteers. So people, if they need to get community service, I can send them to Jefferson Park, and they can sign up and get a letter saying they've done community service to satisfy a fine.
Well, yes.
I mean, you've got everything, you know.
Yeah. And if we can't accommodate them, we work with several other organizations locally, and there's a lot of opportunities in the general area. So, in fact, there's like some other needs at the park itself that we were talking about at a meeting recently. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, there's all kinds of things. And, you know, one of the things we focus on is, you know, people in particular that in order to get the hours that they need for their LINK program, because there is a work part component to it now.
Okay.
So that can be a thing. You know, so we like to prioritize those people. We're trying to help out anybody that needs service hours. But to that point, yes, we do accept LINK. So anybody that's looking for LINK options, we got that too.
You know, Merril, isn't Patti just a great place to find out all kinds of information? I can't believe this.
Yes,
this is great.
This is very strange. I don't need people talking about me while I'm sitting here.
Okay, that's all right.
You two go off and talk on your own. Merril, I also bring a lot of drama, and so you haven't seen me in 6 years. If you try to think back to 2019, you go, "Oh, that's right. There's a lot of drama when Patti's around."
Well, you do a great comedy act too.
Thank you.
So there's drama, there's comedy, right?
Exactly. It's all. I keep things interesting. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Merril, I can't wait to see your face on Sunday morning, and everybody else's too. Stop on by the volunteer table. Sign up for our email list, either at the table, the volunteer table, or online. You can find all the information you need at Jefferson Park on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook, and again in the park. The park proper. It's at Lawrence and Long. So if you get to Lawrence and Milwaukee, you go west on Lawrence. You'll see the park. You can't miss it.
And if you go too far and wind up on Higgins, or you're coming from the other direction, there's an entrance right off Higgins too.
Fair. Yeah. I just know my directions. I don't need other people's directions. Thank you, Merril. I'll see you Sunday morning-ish.
Right.
It'll be in the morning. I promise I'll be there in the morning. I got backpacks
So
to hand out.
anybody looking for backpacks, there might be a little wiggle room on the, first thing in the morning part.
Fair. Thank you, my friend. Take care. I'll see you Sunday.
Bye-bye.
First,
All right.
first round's on me after the market. Talk to you later.
All right.
All right, bye. Let's take a break here and continue our conversation with Judge Jill Rose Quinn, who made history when elected to the office of Cook County Circuit Court Judge, and we'll talk more about that when we come back on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal, KKNW 1150 and KTNF AM 950. And hello to everyone watching digitally. We're very happy to have you here, and our future listeners on our podcasts, which are available at heartlandsignal.com. Should you ever forget to load up on progressive brews from the local favorites like Rogers Park Provisions or Park West Liquor in Lincoln Park, Minocqua Brewing Company beer is now conveniently available at Dream Liquor and Cigar in Kenosha and in the Lake Geneva area at Delavan Liquor and Smoke in Delavan. If the great town of Madison, Wisconsin is your jam, please remember to swing into the Minocqua Brewing Company tap room at 2927 East Washington Avenue to grab some Resistance beer, pizza, t-shirts, and progressive camaraderie.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
Thank you so much for joining us. We continue our drive home here on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal and KKNW 1150 in Seattle, and all of our friends who are tuning in digitally, including Facebook, YouTube, and Minocqua Brewing Company. Please consider, subscribing, liking, sharing with your friends and family so they can join the conversation too. Let me be very honest. I first of all, I feel kind of bad that I haven't invited the judge in prior today, and I was so taken off guard caught off guard when you called. Judge Jill Rose Quinn joins us in studio. She was elected to the Cook County Circuit Court and became the first openly transgender person ever elected to any office in the state of Illinois. And she is now the president of the Alliance of Illinois Judges. And a few weeks ago, she was out in front of 1 million people in the Pride Parade. How was the Pride Parade for you?
A bucket load of fun. I mean, it was just amazing.
Had you ever been in the parade?
For the past 4 or 5 years, I've always done. The Lesbian and Gay Bar Association has a party,
Sure.
And that's at Big Gay Sal's Pizza. So I've gone to that most of the time. So I've never really marched in the parade. And here we were leading a parade.
Yes.
With a bunch of people on the trolley, and we were handing out United States Constitutions and Declaration of Independence to people. And I was telling people, here, take one of these. They're trying to take it away from you.
Yeah.
And people would take them. And I swear, at the end of the parade, I did not see any of those constitutions on the ground.
Yeah.
So people are taking things seriously. But it was a great experience because there are so many people out. They were happy. They were jumping around. They were just, and once in a while I would walk by a group of people and they'd be like, just sort of sitting back and waiting for a breeze. And I would just yell at them and I'd say, get loud, get proud, get loud.
Yes.
And they would perk up, and the crowd was very receptive. And we had about 70 judges marching with us. And everybody was very excited. Cecilia Horan, who was our immediate past president, was able to work things out and get us appointed as the Grand Marshal, and she helped inspire it and put it together. She gets a lot of credit for that. And as an organization, we wanted to make sure, we were very proud of the fact that the rule of law was leading the parade. And I don't know. I don't know if I cried during the parade, but I think I cried afterwards. It was just a great experience to see so many people happy and so many people express themselves, and to know that people were free and proud.
Yeah.
Chicago is a mecca. Chicago is a safe spot in a land of unsafe spots for LGBTQ, especially trans people these days.
Yeah, it is. I know that you have had, experiences that many of us can't imagine. I mentioned to you, I think on the phone, that we have a host here on WCPT that broadcasts out of Minneapolis, St. Paul on KTNF. Ellie Krug, her show is The Illegal Trans Woman, and it's a great show. And we check in with her every month. She's also a lawyer. I wonder if there's. It has to be so hard and yet important to be in the field of law hard in the sense in at all the levels, but now emotionally to see what you handed out, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, just repeatedly disregarded over and over again. And I just saw this. We're just learning now that ICE is coming out and saying that Lorenzo, the man who was killed in Texas, wasn't even the target. And I'm like, well, no one should be the target of being killed in their car. Like, there's no due process. There's a lot going on.
I don't understand yet how an immigration officer has the jurisdiction or the police power to pull someone over in a vehicle.
Right.
They don't have any flashing lights.
Right.
They don't have a grasp of what the traffic code. I mean, there's what's probable cause for an immigration arrest. Oh, he looks Mexican.
Well, that was that's the Kavanaugh rule, isn't it? That's what we consider the Kavanaugh rules. If they sound Latino and they look Latino, and to your point, I mean, that's what is so hard. And now we're seeing that a lot of it is taking place at courthouses when people are showing up and doing the right thing.
Right.
And what I don't know if you saw this, but what they're doing is they're ticketing like tamale vendors, and then when they show up for court is when they grab them.
All right. Well, incidentally, that's not allowed in Cook County courts. And you can see the signs outside the county building. You can see the signs outside the Daily building that says that ICE is not permitted in these buildings to make arrests. You're privileged from arrest while you are in a courthouse. Now, I can't say that if you're on Randolph and Wells on your way to court, something won't happen. But once you get inside the courthouse, nothing's going to happen to you.
Yeah, have your head on a swivel.
Yeah,
be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah.
I do. Let's come back to the work that you do. You work in family courts, right?
Yes.
What would you like somebody who's coming before a judge to know? Because I think we sort of have this idea. We grew up watching Law and Order. Maybe you're old enough to watch L.A. Law. Whatever courtroom shows. The Verdict comes to mind, like all the law movies that we've all seen, going back to Kill a Mockingbird. But you don't know what it's like until you're in that courtroom. What would you like someone who in any situation know when they come to a court? Like how should they, whether it's present themselves, not even what to expect, because every case is different, but it's a lot.
Yeah, well, let me just start off by saying, and this isn't directly answering your question, but I start off my call in the morning and I say, my name is Judge Jill Rose Quinn. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. Please feel free to tell me what pronouns you want me to use when I address you, when I say your name and your gender identity. Are important to me. So if I mispronounce them or misgender you, please correct me.
Yes.
So I want people to know when they come into my court that they certainly are entitled to respect for who they are, who they are as an individual. And you should be, and you're entitled to that respect, not just from me. My clerk will give you that respect. The deputies in my building will give you that respect. And if the opposing attorney doesn't respect you, or if your own attorney doesn't respect you, I make sure that you are respected and that you are free to be who you are. But what you should know is that I want to reach a solution to your problem. I want to get you to the next square. I want you to get you out of court as soon as possible with a way to live, a different way to face problems. So I want you to be similarly respectful to everybody else who's in court. I don't want you to crosstalk and yell at the person that you're against. I want you to, use clean language and to the best you can, just state your position as clearly as possible. I'll listen to you, and I want you to listen to me.
That sounds reasonable, and that sounds like something everybody would want in general. But in particular, when your future and the future of your family, or whatever case you might be coming into a courtroom, is just a baseline of respect for each other. Yeah,
and if you can, get a lawyer to help you. If you can all afford it, get a lawyer to help you, because a lot of times we speak in different languages, and a lot of times there are traps, or there are little things that you miss in the law that a lawyer will already know. Things you don't want to say, things you want to say. So it doesn't hurt to have a lawyer. If you can't afford a lawyer, we have Illinois Legal, IllinoisCourtHelp.com. I have a phone number. I can give Patti the phone number later. I can tell you right now, 833-411-1121. That's Illinois Legal Help. Sometimes, because there's a lot of poor people who need lawyers, it takes a long time to get through that number. But there's a free Illinois Supreme Court agency that gives you legal advice and tells you procedural things, how to file a motion, how to use the system, and so that you can get your position in front of the court. One thing I ask you is and a lot of people like to use AI to write their motions and stuff. If you're going to do that, make sure you understand what you're writing. Don't come to me and say,
There was just a story
Judge,
about this, yes.
Judge, it's printed right here. I mean, I expect you to know what you're telling me. I expect you to cite your case, to know the cases you're citing.
Yeah.
But, that's, on a certain level, if an attorney does that to me, it's called intellectual dishonesty. And I don't want unintentional intellectual dishonesty any more than I want intentional intellectual dishonesty.
That's completely fair. We are hanging out with the Honorable Jill Rose Quinn, who made history when elected to the office of Cook County Circuit Court Judge. She's the first openly transgender Circuit Court Judge and the first openly transgender elected official in Illinois. And I'll tell you why I keep repeating that, because it's important. And I want to talk about that, about representation, about how much it matters when we come back in just a moment on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal and KKNW 1150 in Seattle, and all of our friends tuning in digitally. We're so happy to have you here. More in a moment. Don't go anywhere. But if you are watching digitally, please subscribe and like and all those things. And also, you can tune in the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, including heartlandsignal.com.
Vasquez is taking your calls now.
We need to speak out about this.
At 773-763-9278.
Hello.
It's Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
I am in such a good mood because my friend, the Honorable, I say friend, and even though we haven't seen each other in years, like the minute we saw each other, it was just so very exciting. The Honorable Jill Rose Quinn. She's a judge, a Cook County Circuit Court judge, and I want to talk to you a little bit about representation, because you've talked about how it matters, and I've had listeners text. They never call, and that's fine. But people behind a screen will say, if Democrats just wouldn't, or if whatever party would just stop talking about trans issues, maybe we have a better chance of winning elections. Which I am like, you know what? Then all bets are off, because the rights are rights, as far as I'm concerned.
Sure. I mean, if nobody's free, if not everybody's free, then nobody's free.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. I just don't see a distinction.
No.
And so, they've told me, we have one guest and he's always talking about his husband. I want to hear about his husband. I'm like, I don't tell my other guests not to talk about their relationships. It doesn't make any sense. Like, what do you mean to do? Parse out words? But it is important to have representation at all levels of our government in particular, right? To know that there's somebody that's in a chamber in Congress, or on a bench, or, in City Hall, doesn't it?
It is important. And if you don't have everybody represented, then your government doesn't have any legitimacy for those issues.
Right.
I mean, if folks can't see themselves participating in government, or leading in government, or doing the thing I do in government, then how can that possibly be legitimate for those folks? And if you're going to invite people to sit at the table, you have to invite everybody to sit at the table.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense. And when you do invite everybody to sit at the table, you get a well-reasoned opinion that comes from everybody, that encounters all situations. So I don't know. I guess when you grow up and you're different and you're marginalized, you sort of see a different side of things. You sort of see how everybody is here and you're over here, and that's why there's no understanding of the marginalized person. But at the same time, the marginalized person sees everybody else's opinion because it's bombarding them all the time on TV.
Yes.
It's all over the place. Before I transitioned, and all I saw were couples walking around, whether they were gay couples or straight couples, I would think, God, I'm never going to get in a couple. How do those people do that? How do those people know what to do? And it's like, maybe that's too personal, but it's just like, it's a big world.
It is
Big world.
If you even like if anything, like social media is showing us like a wide range of things you never even thought of before. So every feeling, every emotion, every form of existence, and the thing is like, why does I don't get why it bothers people, but I also agree that being able to see yourself in others and being seen is incredible.
Right. So when we were campaigning, I know grandmas would come up to my wife or me, and they'd say, "I'm so glad that she's running, because my non-binary kid, my trans kid can see that she's running, and they have a better understanding that there's something out there that they can belong to, that there's nothing wrong with them."
Yes. Yes. We have a question from a listener. This seems like an important question. This is my first time caller. Oh, Jim. Hey, Jim, what's on your mind, my friend?
Hi, Patti. Hi, Your Honor.
Hi.
I'm losing confidence in our justice system rapidly. Just a couple examples. The vice president said that Nixon never would have been asked to leave office today because it would have been a 12-hour blip on the screen. And then Jack Smith, in a short interview, saying how he was completely frustrated by the justice system. And the DOJ today, as far as I can tell, is completely politicized. And I don't know how justice can run on that regard, because it's I'm not going to ask a judge what their politics are. I'm more interested in what the outcome of the case is going to be. But I mean, we're losing confidence in the justice system, and I think that's really terrible. I don't know how we restore it. But
I think your problem is with the executive. It's not with the justice system, because individual justices follow the law in general. But you've got an executive now that, instead of enforcing laws, is now legislating laws and now mandating laws. The system of government is supposed to be the legislature legislates. That means they create laws. The judiciary interprets what those laws mean, because words are imperfect, and they can mean different things. So you have a judiciary that interprets what words mean, and applying those words to situations, real life human situations. And the executive branch is just supposed to enforce the laws as they're created by the legislature and interpreted by the judiciary. And now you have somebody who I will not name, who is monkeying around with the Department of Justice. And instead of making that just an arm of enforcement of the law, is making them basically interpret the law, or accepting a biased interpretation of the law and enforcing that version. So hopefully we get away from that. And I think the way to do that is to keep the selection process of judges clear, which, judges in this state are either selected by other judges, or they run for office, or they're appointed by the Supreme Court. We've got 3 different ways of picking judges. And those, in this state, we're relatively free from legislative interference, unlike what's going on in the United States.
Anyway, Your Honor, you explained it beautifully, and Patti, and you guys have a great weekend, and thanks very much for taking my call. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim. Nice to meet you.
Jim, a lot of listeners know this. So Jim reminds me of my dad. If he had grown up on the West Side and was liberal, my dad was Northwest Side. Well, but it's a long story. But he, at the end, the last election, he voted for Gore. So there was hope.
Right.
But what he mentioned was that J.D. Vance recently said that if Nixon did today what he was, would have been impeached for and stepped down for, it wouldn't even rise to the occasion. Meaning there's a lot more worse things going on, and they're getting away with it, is what it smacked of. At any rate,
and I can't.
Yeah, you can't. How, right? Yeah. How? So you were a lawyer you practiced law for over 37 years.
Yes.
And so what was do you remember that moment you decided, I need to be on the bench?
Okay, well, that runs into one of the things I want to talk about, and that is the National LGBT Bar Association, which is having its convention in Chicago this week, this weekend beginning Monday, and that is a collection of or open for membership for all LGBTQ lawyers. So back in 2013 or 2012, I thought to myself, I know there are other LGBTQ lawyers, and I read that they were having a convention, and so I went to that convention, and I met there at that convention the first openly transgender judge appointed in the country. Her name was Phyllis Fry, and Phyllis Fry, not only was she, she was an openly transgender attorney in Harris County, which is where Houston is, in 1976. So she's walking around in 1976. She's transgender. She's practicing law, and she's introducing people. And you know what? If people accidentally thought that she was not transgender, she would say things like, "Well, you know, when I was an Eagle Scout, we did things this way." So at the time,
to be clear,
at the time, girls couldn't be Eagle Scouts. So she was open about it. And Phyllis said to me, at the time there were 2 openly transgender judges in the country. And Phyllis said to me, "Vicki and I are tired of being the only 2. You need to run. You need to be visible. You need to be out there so people can see who we are." And so I took that back and I started applying to be an associate judge. And I want to make it clear that along with the LGBTQ Bar Association, there's an international association of LGBTQ judges. And there's about 200 members, but I think there's probably about 300 around the world transgender judges. And I know that the last time they were here in Chicago, they met up with someone who worked at a Starbucks, and they had like a pin that said ILGBTQ. And they said, "Well, what does that mean, ILGBTQ judges?" And that young person was astounded that there were lesbians and gay men and binary people and openly bisexual people and transgender people being judges. And so this is our convention. This is when we get together and talk about the law and talk about where we have to go in the future. We gather law firms and state agencies from all over the country to recruit young lawyers and young law students so that they can have jobs and so they can have connections and they can know they're not alone.
Outstanding. Well, thank you so much, Judge Jill Rose Quinn. Please don't, the Honorable Jill Rose Quinn, please don't make this the last time.
I will not.
Now that you know where we are, and if you want, we can do a check-in. Like if you want to do like a monthly segment of like, here's what to expect in court, or we call it Your Honor, an hour with Your Honor. The Honorable Jill Rose Quinn, huh?
Are you on every day or just Friday?
Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday. Okay,
Yeah.
so we can find it. Yeah, sure. I can find a day every.
Excellent, because we had a great time with Judge Weaver and Mar Rubio. We had a great time with. Yeah. So we should rotate some judges in. I'm just saying.
I can bring friends.
Let's do that. Excellent. Well, you have a wonderful weekend. I hope I see you at the market, everybody. Let's take a break here and continue our conversation when we come back on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal, KKNW 1150. And thank you, everyone who's tuning in digitally. We'll be right back in a moment.
Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, Patti Vasquez.
From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing asses says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
Thank you so much for joining us. We continue our conversation here on Driving It Home. I'm your host, Patti Vasquez, and hello to all of our friends who are tuning in on KKNW 1150 in Seattle, KTNF AM 950 Minneapolis, St. Paul, and of course, we're broadcasting on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal here in Chicago. And hello to all of our friends tuning in digitally, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, and now on Minocqua Brewing Company's Substack. Hello, everybody. Please consider subscribing to any one of those pages and sharing with your friends and family so they can join the conversation too. And I just kind of was joking with our next guest a little bit when I will turn 55 in August. And sometimes I think for some reason this one's hitting me a little bit harder, but the alternative, I think it's better than growing. The great thing about growing old is that we didn't go young, and we are lucky to be here. And I know this is a story that will sound familiar to anybody who ever gave a company their best years. Jen Schroeder spent more than 2 decades climbing the corporate ladder. She was told she was the top pick for promotion. Then she watched a 25-year-old fresh out of school, get the job instead. And then the company asked her to train the kid. So Jen said one word, no. That no cost her a job. It also lit a fire. She's now 59. She runs something called the Unobsolete, and she's speaking for millions of workers over 45 who got told they were done. AARP says 64% of older workers have seen or lived age bias on the job. Jen turned hers into a movement. Jen, welcome to Driving It Home. Are you staying hydrated, my friend?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much for having me, Patty. I'm very excited to be here.
Excellent. Yeah, it's I know it's warm.
It's warm.
Where you, yeah, we get a lot of that going around the country these days. Jen, it's such a crazy story when you believe that you're next in line, and then you've been led to believe that you're next in line for promotion. And not only is that not the case, then they ask you to train the next person. And I have seen this video. I feel like I saw it not long after it happened. Tell us a little bit about that moment, and then the decision to go, you know what, I'm not alone, and there are other people who are going to respond to this. There are other people who will identify with this.
Yeah, so the moment was really painful in that you get blindsided and you almost feel like you're standing next to yourself. There's one person and then there's this other person that you're emerging as. And so it was a really painful moment, but it was a progress to get me to the point where I was comfortable saying I was going to go out there and put this on social media. So it was, a decision that was made in the moment. I guess 30 seconds of courage is what got me out there.
Yeah.
And that's how I did it.
Was yours I believe yours was in your car as well. Did you start in your car with just straight to camera?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. And no makeup. I made sure I had no makeup, nothing on. I was like, this is me.
Yeah.
You're gonna take me or hate me or love me. One or the other.
I feel like there's a whole movement of women who are like, I've had enough, like the I Do Not Care Club. And you, with the work that you're doing, it had that energy of like, you know what? There are people who I need to connect with. So tell us about you went on and on your camera, just straight to camera, and said, here's what happened to me. And you were very straightforward. It was very authentic. We could tell that you weren't scripting anything. You just walked us through the whole thing. So for our audience now, like, what was the reaction that you got? Because if I saw it, I'm guessing a lot of people saw it.
Yes, I got an amazing reaction. I was really surprised. So I posted it, and then I had to travel that day. So I didn't really realize I was going to get anything from it. And then my kids actually called me and said, "Mom, you've gone viral." And so I just kept getting view after view after view after view. And so it was very surprising, but it was also very comforting and validating that I wasn't alone in this world of what was happening. And there were a lot of people that were suffering through the same sort of process. And so it was awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome. I mean, like, what a tremendous way to tap into energy that I think a lot of folks don't know how to express. So it was it's one of those, I guess, aha moments, and has led you on a new path. Tell us a bit about where that moment took you, and then doing this work.
Yeah. So originally, when it happened, I wasn't really sure which direction I wanted to go, but I knew I had a lot of knowledge because it had happened to me a couple of times. So I decided that I was going to turn it into something positive for everyone as my second or even third act in my career. So I decided to become a workplace advocate and fill the space that wasn't being filled between HR and attorneys, because there's a lot of stuff that can happen in between and help people before they actually even need to go to an attorney. So that's kind of the space that I fill, helping workers and being a workplace advocate and working through strategies for people and helping them survive PIPs and things of that nature. What
kind of work were you doing when you were told, you were led to believe that you were going to get this promotion?
So I was doing technical work. I was a director at the time, and I was working for a educational company. Okay. And I happened to be one of the oldest people on staff at the time. So it was working with a lot of younger people, which is very energizing. But it was a kind of a new path for me when I had done it. And so I was just a director of technology at the time. Did anyone contact you after your video went viral about what happened at this company? Yes. Lots of people actually contacted me about it afterwards. There were plenty of people that wanted to know more about my story. One of the things that I always wanted to be true to was not sharing too much information because it's more about the message rather than the company. Right. Because the people, everybody that's experiencing this is at their own company and things. So I wanted it to be more about what people are experiencing and helping them rather than my particular, just isolating my experience. So I did have a lot of contacts about it, but it was interesting conversations. Yes.
Sure. So what, as a workplace advocate, was that something that you had experience with before plunging into this?
No, I hadn't. I had been a director that was over HR and things, so I knew a lot about it. And I had been pushed out of a few jobs, and I had done some entrepreneurial work, so I knew a lot about business and how these types of things work. But it was a lot of self-education. Just in the process of self-education, it was also self-healing.
I believe it. What has surprised you the most learning about like HR and, as you mentioned, what you can do before you have to reach out to a lawyer and spend a lot of money for your own legal protection?
Yeah, I think the thing that surprises me the most is that people don't really have a clear understanding of where HR sits in the picture of a corporate or even an organization together. HR is a entity that we've all been led to believe for whatever reason that they're there to support the employee. And to a degree they are. They're not bad people, they're good people, but their job in and of itself is to protect the company. So if it comes down to the employee or the company, their job is to protect that company. And so I think that's probably the most revealing thing to me, that most people don't have that clear picture of what HR's role is. So getting them to understand how to navigate that world before they go down the road of talking to an attorney is a space that not many people have gotten into.
Well, and it's something that I was learning like years ago in a conversation that I had was like just even the phrase human resource is that the laborers, the workers are the resource. So if a resource becomes a liability or is too expensive, like that's, they'll find another resource.
Yes,
they will. That's the bottom line. So one of the things that you did, is this right? You were offered a 2 weeks and you walked out with a 6 month of severance rather than what they floated.
Yes, I did. I negotiated my own severance. Most terrifying experience of my life, but also the most invigorating and the most empowering. So yeah, I did. I negotiated the whole thing myself, and that's what I teach people to do.
Well, and when you have like in this space now, you mentioned that you had gone through similar things before. I've been in a situation where once I'm when you reach out to HR or pop your head up and they realize, oh, this might be a problem. Some people have the experience of basically a company building a file, and I learned later that the language that was used in my file was the exact same language that was used in letting go of other people, condescending to others, dismissive. Like the tone of voice was used against many of us in this place of business. Have you?
Yes.
Have you? Yeah. It's so weird. I mean, like, what a straight. So this is common.
This is common. This is definitely common, and it's gotten to the point where it's so common, and the HR or the employment world it's common that people can use the language, but it's also common that certain individuals have become very powerful within the organizations and able to use that language to push out somebody they just don't like.
Yeah.
It might not even be your work or, anything to do with the business that you're in. It just might be that they just don't like you. So yes, it's very common.
So what can you do to protect yourself in that situation when you realize that are there red flags that we can identify that someone is actively working to push you out of a position?
Yeah, there are red flags. So some of the things that you'll see that people will stop including you on meetings. It may be meetings that you used to lead. It could be projects that you used to lead. They'll start giving your work to other people. Another thing that people will do is they'll start not responding. So your manager might not respond as quickly as they used to. They might start using language like that you need coaching, or you need some, you're not meeting expectations and things of that nature. So those are all things that you can look at as red flags before you get into a situation where you're being pushed out.
And what steps should you take once you identify that?
I think it's really setting your ground. So one thing is to build your documentation file. So and I know this is counterintuitive to all of us, but because of the world that we live in and the way it is today, it's very important to build your documentation file from day one. That doesn't mean that you have to use it ever in a situation, but you want to have it so that you know that you've got your record that you can stand up right next to their record and have a comparison. So building that documentation file is your first line of defense, writing all the conversations that you have, forwarding any emails. And if you can't forward emails because of the legalities of your company, you can do screenshots and things of that nature. So protecting yourself is one, doing that, and then also knowing the players before you walk in the door.
Yeah, folks, it's funny because I recently talked about this for other instances of interactions with people that you may, like even forwarding an email to yourself. I've told people to like write the documentation down and forward it to yourself so you have a timestamp and that you're not, so you can, you're not accused of creating something suddenly, kind of a thing, right?
Yes, because people will change the language. If it's not written, then they can say it hasn't been said. So anytime you have a meeting where your expectations have changed or the goalposts are moving or things of that nature within your job, you should always follow back up with the person that's in that situation. Could be your manager or another project lead, and just have a recap of what was said so that you have a documentation file.
I'm getting I'm getting a little bit of a stress, just memories of, and I think a lot of people listening, because they're, in addition to what we're talking about, being identified as somebody maybe HR doesn't like, or a coworker or a supervisor, something like that. There are just in general places that are just toxic workplaces. Have you come across conversations like that as well?
Yes, a lot of toxic workplaces where it is from the top down, where it is allowed for people to treat one another poorly and for people to be pushed out and have poor leadership. So it is always going to come from the top. If a person at the very top doesn't realize what's going on in their organization, then they're not leading well. So if it's toxic, generally speaking, it's often sponsored from the top down. Sometimes it's just inadequacies in the communication, but either way, it's their responsibility as they to correct that, and it's often not done.
What do you, I know what my reasons for being hesitant to, sort of stand up for myself. And I suspect it's a lot of people. What do people express to you as their biggest fear about defending themselves or putting up, creating a scenario where they're able to advocate for themselves?
I think the biggest fear is that people are afraid of losing the income, right? Especially in the marketplace that we're in now, where it's more difficult to find jobs. And especially as you're getting older, it's harder to find jobs quicker. When we're younger, it's easier. As we get older, it becomes much, the time is, there's a longer length of time between employment periods. So the biggest thing I think people are afraid of is that they're going to lose that income. But if you're already in a managed exit situation, or you're already being pushed out, or you're on a PIP, most likely you're already on that path anyway. So advocating for yourself just allows yourself to be able to negotiate a better severance, to potentially stay a little bit longer. There are tools and tricks that can be used within the laws that we have in this country to be able to protect yourself for a longer period of time so that you can plan for that exit better. And that's where people like I come in, where we can build that strategy. How do people reach out to you for counseling, for learning more about this too? So we have a website. It is theunobsolete.com. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all of them, and LinkedIn. You can find me at Jennifer Schroeder out there on there as well. We are talking to Jen Schroeder. You have time for one more segment? I know that I asked earlier, but then I want to double check. I don't want to take your time if it's... Absolutely. Because time is money, everybody. We're going to continue our conversation with Jen Schroeder. I know that folks are going to have questions about this afterwards, so hopefully you'll join us again, Jen. We'll take a break here and come back on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal. That's KKNW 1150 in Seattle, KTNF AM 950 Minneapolis, St. Paul, and of course all of our friends tuning in digitally on Facebook, YouTube, and now Minocqua Brewing Company's Substack. We'll be right back after this.
Welcome back to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
Thank you so much for joining us. We continue our conversation here on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal, KKNW 1150 Seattle, KTNF AM 950 Minneapolis, St. Paul, and of course all of our friends tuning in digitally, as well as those who might be listening to this as a podcast, which are available at heartlandsignal.com. It's so funny when I saw the story, I'm like, oh, this is such a great story. Jen Schroeder is 59 years old, and not that long ago she went viral because she was a director of a department, and she was led to believe that she would get a promotion. And when she found out that it was a 25-year-old instead, and then they wanted her to train that individual, she said enough, and has now gone on to help people all over the country. The kind of thing I think a lot of us wonder, like, what can we do to protect ourselves? Jen Schroeder was just sharing some of the information. It's called the Unobsolete, and it's not just about venting, because I know that's initially what you did, but you realize how many people responded and identified with this kind of situation. You help people, and we mentioned earlier about getting attorney ready. What's the first move for somebody who thinks they might have to go in that direction?
So I think it's getting the information that you have organized is number one, but number two, it's also taking the emotion out before you have the conversation. Because a lot of people that come to me will have talked to 3 or 4 attorneys, and they can't get them to understand what they might have as a case. And what happens is that because this is such an emotional thing to go through, and it's, a lot of people are very just, overwhelmed by what happens. They spend the first 15 minutes of a free consultation or a paid consultation, oftentimes with an attorney, talking from emotion. And you have to take the emotion out because the attorney is looking for the case that's in there. So they want to know what the legal, piece is. And half the time people don't even get to it before they're done with the consultation. So it's really taking the emotion out and preparing for that, I think, is the biggest thing. I
was just going to say, and having gone through this, I know I definitely came in unprepared, definitely. And the other thing is, like, and depending on, like with sexual harassment cases, some law firms will be like, okay, we might be able to take this like a contingency, but, but there's also like state by state how laws work for worker protections, don't they? We're one of the worst apparently in Illinois.
Yes, there are good states and bad states for that. And so you have to take into the federal law, and then you also have to take into account the state laws. So each one is independent and different, and it really just depends on what your situation is. So there's a lot of things, a lot of moving parts that you have to think about before you, plan on going into having a conversation with an attorney or just trying to figure out your strategy.
Just out of curiosity, like how many? I know that even your kids are telling you went viral. You decided to, like, I can do something this would help other people. We've talked about like some of the things that have surprised you, and I know we don't want to go into any specifics about anything personal, but was it surprising how bad it can be for some people out there, or had you had enough experiences to go, I'm sorry that happened to you, and you're not alone, kind of a situation too?
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
I'm actually shocked by some of the behavior that is allowed to take place out there. Some of the things that are, I talked a little bit about power dynamics and stuff. Some of the things that individuals can do within a company to ruin somebody else's life, literally for maybe not even be work related. Sometimes it can be work related, but a lot of times it's not. So I get stories every day when I'm working on strategy with people that is just heartbreaking that I thought it was bad for me, but mine is really a relatively mild case compared to what some of the stuff that happens out there is.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Like, and there is a sort of like self-pity mode you can go into, right? And not to say it could be worse for anybody in a situation. I think that everyone should know what you're going through is important in your life. So I don't want to diminish what anyone's going through. But I've had moments where I'm like, oh my God, I thought I had it bad. This is wild. Not to diminish what I went through. You get that same feeling too?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I have to like check myself all the time because I spend a lot of time trying to figure out what happened to me.
Yes.
And some of these things that people have gone through are just 10 times, tenfold what I went through. Just crazy.
What would you tell somebody who, is trying to manage those emotions? I know you mentioned going into the consultation, you want to take emotion out. What are some tips that you give for folks to like, it's not just, you're not the only one, isn't enough, right? There's a validity to the pain you've experienced, isn't there?
Yes, there's definitely a validity to it. And you need to make sure, I think, that you allow yourself that grieving process, right? We have all these concepts of self-help and things of that nature that help us get through things in our regular life, but in our personal life and things. But nobody ever really talks about how you do that in your workplace.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important to allow yourself to go through that process there before you get, the initial, people want to reach out so quickly to an attorney. And I always say, take a couple days, just calm yourself down and get your thoughts in place.
Yeah. And I think that, there's this moment where you have to go, you know what? Because we know deep down that life's not fair. But we want accountability. I'm guessing you get a lot of that too. You want people to be held accountable.
Yes, especially when it's a toxic workplace. Yes, and they've pushed out 5 or 6 people before you. Yes, people are really angry about that being something that they can, continue to do, and the same pattern repeats itself. And so, yes, there's a lot of accountability conversations and a
And
lot of emotion around it.
right, and it's hard to come to that place and accept that's not always like it's mostly not possible, right?
It's mostly not possible. Yeah, a lot of the people that I do coaching with or counseling with, they will come to me and say, one of my questions is, okay, if you could script this the way you want it to go, what would it be? Because I want to get an idea of where they are. And they always come back to me with, this, it's usually not money. It's usually, I want this person to be held accountable. And so that's pretty telling, how far that is up on the food chain for them.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. What are some of the resources in addition to reaching out to the obsolete? I'll get it. The unobsolete. Where do you think? Where do you want people to learn more, to get support and things like that too? In addition to the work you do.
Yeah, so they can go and look at a lot of the laws that we have in this country. You can always go out to the EEOC. There's a lot of information there. Go to your state labor board. There's information about your particular state's how they handle certain things. So FMLA, Title VII, EEOC, all of those things, they all have websites. The ADEA, the OWBPA, which is the Older Workers Benefit Protection Act, Age Discrimination in Employment Act is the other one. And all of those have websites that are very, very thorough, and the information is extensive.
Yeah, folks. I mean, I think having we talk about this. It sounds so cliche, but knowledge is power. I think there's something to be said about that, and because it's so isolating when you're in a toxic situation, or you feel like you're the target too. Right?
Yeah. You feel like you're the target. You feel like you're just alone and nobody, you go to your car and cry, you eat your lunch in your car. That's what I did. And it's just very isolating. And that's what they're trying to do. That is actually part of the game plan. So you have to find a way to get around it. And there is a community out there of a lot of us that will be more than happy to help you out.
Again, we are talking to Jen Schroeder, the unobsolete. She got managed out of a job she was good at for the crime of being over 50. And I love that you're sharing this story because, first of all, we're all living longer. We're going to be around, and we have a lot to offer, don't we?
We do. We have a lot to offer. We have all that experience behind us. So to actually take and push out the older people is crazy to me because that's where the knowledge lives. And so, yeah, we have a lot to offer, and people should be definitely not letting somebody stop you from offering that to the world.
How do you frame that for folks? Like, what's the best way to present yourself? Like, are you seeing strategies that work to communicate that to possible employers of the value? I mean, like, it's challenging.
It is challenging. So you have to acknowledge what they're saying. I think it's important to acknowledge that when someone says to you, well, you might not be a culture fit. Well, I think it's immediate. The response back is, when you say culture fit, are you talking about, specifically, are you talking about age? And make them talk about it, because the conversation about age and age discrimination, it is the hardest of the protected classes to prove. And I think that if you turn the conversation around, if you can get them to say something about age, or even if they don't, the conversation is, look, I am looking for a position. So you might want to redirect them, I guess is what I'm saying. I am looking for a position that takes all of my expertise and my value and is willing to work with me in a situation knowing that I bring a lot of expertise and institutional knowledge to the table. So it's redirecting their bias.
Right. So the advocacy you do is both guiding people who are in a situation that's, quite miserable, finding the best ways to protect themselves, and then finding that path forward. It's got to be very fulfilling for you, I hope.
It is very fulfilling. Yes, I can honestly say that this second act of mine is the most rewarding and also most challenging career of my life. It wasn't what I selected, but I love it.
That's wild. We talked a little bit before we went on the air. You're in South Carolina. I have a soft spot in my heart for South Carolina. Well, first of all, what are the temps like this week for you?
98.
Okay.
I think all week. We are past heat advisory. We are on heat warning today.
Oh man. Well,
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for the work that you do and pleasure and just so delighted to meet you. It's weird. I'm in this space now. I think do people like recognize you from your videos ever? Like when you're out in the world?
They are starting to. Yes. Yes. That is. Yeah, that is also weird. Something you got to get used to, but that's okay. It comes with the job, right? It's good.
It's
all good.
It's a whole new world of celebrity, but in a way that is so people feel so connected because it's intimate. Whether it's a minute video. I mean, you were so vulnerable, and so I want to thank you for taking whatever inspired you to grab your phone and go, I'm not going to take this sitting down, and you didn't do it in a like I'm gonna like a not in a like get at them way, but I mean, wild success is its own kind of revenge, isn't it?
It is. It absolutely is. It's awesome. It's awesome.
That's outstanding. Remind folks how they can follow you on all the social media platforms and how they can contact you to help them advocate their way through their position they're in now or in the future.
Okay, so we are on all the social media platforms, really at the Unobsolete. So it's at the Unobsolete on TikTok, Facebook, all of them, Instagram, and then we have a website. It is www.theunobsolete.com, and you can find us there. We have lots of resources for you.
Excellent. Well, if you were so inclined and wanted to join us again and maybe take calls, I know this is also the line of work that you're in, so we can figure that out depending on your time and schedule and interest.
Yes, no, I'd love to. That would be awesome. That'd be great.
Excellent. Jen, it was a pleasure talking to you. Everyone, find that social media account Unobsolete. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I look forward to having Jen Schroeder on with us again. Stay cool, stay hydrated, and thank you for all you're doing to advocate for people who are not obsolete. They are unobsolete. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Of course. More after this on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal, KKNW 1150 and KTNF AM 950. And thank you to everybody tuning in digitally. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
Thank you so much for joining us and to continue our drive home here on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal, KKNW 1150 in Seattle, and KTNF AM 950 Minneapolis, St. Paul, and of course all of our friends tuning in digitally on Facebook or YouTube, and now Minocqua Brewing Company Substack. So thank you so much. If you are on any of those platforms, please make sure you subscribe and share with your friends so they can join the community as well. And if you are tuning in at some other time, you can on our podcast. We love that you are our future listeners, and you can catch all of our podcasts at heartlandsignal.com. And I'm excited, and yet I think the audience really needs to hear this conversation because it can't happen here is the bedtime story every free country tells itself. And it's no different for Ireland. In 1940, Ireland declared neutrality and called the entire war the emergency, like it was a storm system that would pass. What almost nobody over here learned in school, I never heard this at all, never knew this. Hitler had a real plan on paper to invade Ireland. It just gives me goosebumps even saying that. They called it Operation Green. It never launched, but it was written. And our next guest built a whole novel in that gap, the space between what happened and what almost did. Martha Conway is an award-winning novelist, and she teaches writing at Stanford. Her new book, We Meet Apart, drops two American sisters in 1940 Ireland in two different realities, one where Ireland stays neutral and one where the Germans came. If you ever felt like your own country is living in two realities at once, I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. Martha, welcome to Driving It Home. Are you staying hydrated during these times?
Thank you. Yes, I know. Well, I'm in San Francisco, so it's foggy and cold.
Oh, we're living in very strange times, but that is wild.
Yes, talk about two different worlds.
Exactly. We're heading into 90, probably mid 90s to high 90s again this week, as we did last week. And
oh my gosh!
Wow. Yes.
Yeah, that's hot. That's hot.
At a time when, we're talking a lot about what history matters, whose story should be told. This is history that nobody taught us. So most Americans have no idea Ireland sat out World War II or that Hitler had a plan to invade it anyway. So tell us how they approached it, the emergency, and what was Operation Green.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting from the Irish side. They had been living under English rule for 800 years. England had come and taken over Ireland, and Ireland had only very recently, gotten their independence. Like literally, it was about 20 years before World War II began. So there was a lot of animosity towards the English, as you can imagine. The Irish did not feel like many Irish felt like they did not really want to fight alongside the English, their English oppressors. So, so they sat out the war. Also, they didn't really have an army or anything like that. However, they were very afraid always of being invaded. Every country was, right, at that time. And in fact, as you said, Germany did have a plan to invade Ireland called Operation Green. And this was one idea they had of getting to England. They would conquer Ireland and then from there go to England, conquer England.
Oh my God! And so tell us. So, what prevented that? Was it how far along into the war were those plans written, and what was the time? Do we have an idea of what that timeline looked like?
Yeah, they had this idea that they were going to do it after they conquered France. They would first conquer France, which of course they did, and then they would go to Ireland from there, and that they would use French boats. That was the idea. Now, I told this, and when they got to France, they found that the French didn't have any boats. And there's this whole idea that France was ill prepared for the war. And I thought that that was just part of it. You know, they didn't have any boats. But when I told this story to my 100-year-old father, he never fought in World War II, but he was in training as a pilot when the war ended. He said, yes, that's right, because Churchill bombed the French fleet. The French fleet was in the Mediterranean. Churchill said, we don't want this to fall into the hands of the German, the Nazi party. So please scuttle your ships. Is that the right word? Scuttle?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Sink your ships.
Okay.
And the French wouldn't do it. And so Churchill bombed the entire French fleet. So there were actually no boats for the Nazis to take to go to Ireland.
Thank God. Oh my God.
Well, it's a mixed bag because there were French soldiers on board. There were French, French men who were killed in that bombing. So war, of course, is terrible. Terrible things happen all around.
Wow. And here's the thing, with Ireland not wanting to get involved, and people hear neutral and they think of, a country that's going to sit the war out quietly. Obviously, Churchill had a lot of different, let's say, plates spinning when it came to, as you mentioned, neutralizing the ships with France and things like that. So what did happen in Ireland as far as were there ever, I don't think we even know if it was attacked or if it was just completely ignored until part of this plan. And what did neutrality actually cost the Irish?
Yeah, it was a tightrope. It was definitely a tightrope. And the Taoiseach, who is like the prime minister, Eamon de Valera, he was very careful to have a complete blackout of information. That's what he was trying to do because he so much didn't want Hitler to use any excuse to invade, which is smart in some ways. But they did get bombed a couple of times by the Germans, and the Germans said it was a mistake. Who knows if it was a mistake or not? It's a whole
island. How do you accidentally? It's not.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So they did get bombed a couple of times. The North, of course, they were still part of the UK, and they fought alongside the English. But the South, they actually, in some ways, fared better than some other places because they still had food, they still had cattle, they still had dairy. And so sometimes the English would come into Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, just to get a good meal.
Yeah, well, and that is just wild. And so civilians did die, though, in Ireland when they were bombed.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
What was the reaction amongst the Irish in that regards?
Oh, they were incensed. They were incensed. And they even burnt a huge, they had a hillside that had EIRE, which is Ireland, IRA, burnt onto the hillside that could be seen from an airplane to remind Germany, hey, don't bomb us. We're neutral. This is the South. We're neutral. Don't bomb us.
Wow.
They were worried.
Yeah, no kid. I would imagine. So, you've said that in other conversations that the book clicked into place when you learned Germany really had a detailed invasion plan. Most historical novelists write what happened, and you've written the shadow version, the one where it did. Why chase this, this sort of vision of what might have happened?
Yeah, it was sort of a strange evolution. Originally, it was just one story. It was Gabby's story, this American young woman who thought she had lost everything. Her parents and her only sister had died. She thought her only sister had died. And it was Ireland as it really was. Somebody who was a country that was trying desperately to stay out of the war, but always very afraid. And eventually I started to read about this plan of invasion, and I thought that might be kind of fun to write about, like what would have happened if. So I wove into Gabby's story a second story, the story of her sister Sabine, who in this novel, she is not dead, but she is living in another world. She's living in a version of Ireland in 1940 in which the Germans have invaded, and as an American, she has to survive on the run. She's an enemy alien, and I got to explore that whole part of what if.
Wow. What a brilliant idea. I really do. And so it's at the heart of it, as you mentioned, is the two sisters who can only reach each other. So tell us about like the way that you've created for them to connect in these two different realities.
Yeah, well, I have to tell you, in the beginning, I was just writing by the seat of my pants. I was thinking, I don't know what this is. I don't know why this is happening. I'm going to keep writing it and figure it out. And I'm going to keep doing research. And I was very lucky in that I did find the 16th century pamphlet that was talking about ghosts and pookies and fairies. And in this pamphlet, it said, they come out, the other world, where all of these creatures exist, can only be seen for an hour at dusk. That's when the veil between the two worlds is thin. And I thought, okay, great. You might be able to see this other world at dusk. That's when I'm going to do it. So for 1 hour, an evening at dusk, these two worlds overlap and these two sisters can meet.
What that is, I got the chills again. What a brilliant idea and absolutely lovely and a beautiful tribute to, the stories that a lot of us grew up with. My father was second generation Irish. I mean, I'm second generation. No, my great grandmother, Maggie O'Doyle, was from County Cork. So I love.
Oh, that's just where our people are from too.
Oh, interesting. We'll have to talk.
County Cork.
Yeah.
Yes.
The
my mother's people.
Yeah, my dad's people. My mom's from Mexico, hence the combination. And I go by my mother's name, but not the Irish side legally. It's a whole we're all complicated.
It's always complicated.
It really is.
Yeah.
We're gonna take a break here. We're talking to award-winning novelist Martha Conway. Her new book, We Meet Again, absolutely dazzled by where two sisters are dropped into 1940 Ireland. They're American sisters in two different realities. Where Ireland stays neutral during World War II, and the one where the Germans came. And wow, I want to learn more. So let's take a break here. We'll continue on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal, KKNW 1150, KTNF AM 950, and hello to all of our friends tuning in digitally or in the future. More in a moment.
No detours, no distractions, just bold ideas and real talk. This is Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
Thank you so much for joining us. We continue our conversation here on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal, KKNW 1150 Seattle, KTNF AM 950 Minneapolis, St. Paul, and of course, all of our digital platforms, Facebook, YouTube, and now Monaco Brewing Company's Substack. Please consider subscribing and sharing this content with your friends and family so they can join the conversation as well, because I keep meaning to have a book club, and I know I've talked about it for the longest time. This is going to be the one. You guys, everyone, we all should be picking up Martha Conway's We Meet Apart. I apologize in the previous segment. I misspoke and said I said something else. You don't need to know what I said. But it is available wherever you buy your books, including your local bookstore, of course, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. And I think this is the one we really should have a conversation about because you know how much I love history. This story is absolutely fascinating. Award-winning novelist Martha Conway. She also teaches writing at Stanford. This book just came out last month, and we're so thrilled to have you on the show, really. And thank you for being patient with me talking too fast sometimes.
Thank you for having me. It's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I tell people that I have a lot of voices in my head, and this is the first one that gets out. So it's a lot going on. So, and I just mentioned that you teach at Stanford, and you tell your students at Stanford to look for what's possible in a story. So, you have said this book was about looking for what's impossible and making the case for it. So tell us a bit about that, like walking your students and yourself through this process.
Yeah, sure. Well, especially when you're writing historical fiction, you want to write something that is true, but not necessarily the norm. In fact, you don't really want to write about the norm. You want to write about something that is a little bit more interesting than the norm. So usually when I'm writing historical fiction or talking about historical fiction, I say you want something that is possible, but not, it just has to be possible, right? But not necessarily the norm. However, in this case, as you mentioned, I looked for the impossible. It was the pandemic when I was writing. We were all trapped in our little caves. I was in my little office cave. And so the idea of two sisters being trapped somewhere, in this case, Ireland, really resonated with me. I'm sure it will resonate with everyone, and trying to get out. So from there, going to these two different worlds and trying to make the case for the impossible, it was just a way of letting my imagination just go hog wild. I took off the leash. I just let myself think of anything that I possibly could want to write about, and I wrote about that. And then, of course, you have to convince the readers that, hey, this is a good story, and maybe it's possible, maybe it's not, but we all talk about ghosts. We all talk about, fairies and other world creatures. Here's a way of thinking about it that maybe hasn't been thought about before.
Oh, I as a kid who was oddly given a Ouija board when they were 7 years old.
I loved those. I
loved them too. My mother is from Mexico, and she said that when I was about 6 or 7, I was very afraid of death, and I got you a Ouija board to normalize it. Which wasn't a thing in the 70s.
Interesting.
Yeah. My joke is that I figured you'd have someone to talk to about it. Very.
Yeah, and the funny thing about Ouija boards and ghosts in general is that they're both fun and scary, and that's like a very powerful combination.
Yes, especially there's like the board game folks made the Ouija boards. I can't remember if it was Milton or Parker Brothers or
Really? Wow.
It was in the same aisle. I remember it was at Toys R Us.
Wow.
Isn't that I'm fascinated
that is
by
wild.
That. So for anybody, I have a lot of folks. I'm sure you have, people as a teacher, obviously have students who are interested. I maybe have a son who just graduated from college with a degree in creative writing.
Congratulations.
And history, actually. I just realized that.
Wow.
This is all fascinating. So for people who do want to write, and I'm not asking about him because I think there are folks who feel like they've got a story in them. I know you get this question a lot about if they have a novel sitting in them, don't you everyone should put it down someplace, even if you dictate it to an app, right?
Yes, absolutely. I feel like following your creativity, especially in times like these, is the best thing that you can do for yourself and the world. Put something positive out there. And what I would say is just start writing or just start dictating, whatever it is, see what comes out. And, go from there. When I start writing, I have one question that I say to myself, what does my character want? And then the second question is, does she get it in the end? And then I build up a lot of obstacles so that it's hard. It's usually it's hard for her to get it in the end, but not impossible. I like happy endings. I like mixed endings. I'm not going to say that every character gets exactly what they want, because they don't, but they get something. I always want them to get something that maybe they didn't even know that they wanted or needed. So that's the thing that I tell my students.
I think that's such a great way to put it. I was just thinking, about the work that you've done in this. And again, folks, this is the genesis of this is Martha learning that Ireland, while neutral during World War II, Hitler had a plan to invade, and this is what would have happened if they had. There's two realities, so one of my favorite World War II books is by Marge Piercy, Gone to Soldiers. I don't know if you've ever read that one, and it was
I have not, but I love Marge Piercy.
Oh, so good. And I did not, that was where I learned, and I read this in college, and I was already in the history program, but I didn't know that there are like all these women that were in the military, the WASPs, the Waves, the WACs, and it was a whole world. And then when A League of Their Own came out, I mean, I think there was like more of that. Tell us a little bit about like writing about heroines who, the heroines get what they want. Like, let's say in League of Their Own, right? Dottie, she and all of them, right? They all get what they want. They get to play the big game. Gina Davis comes back, but like the Waves, the WACs, the WASPs, they were all told to go home once they got what they wanted, kind of. So tell us a little about that sort of through line.
Yes, that's a really interesting thing. With every war, strangely, women's rights move up a little bit, and they get a little bit more because the men are all gone. Than they had gotten previous to the war. And then, as you say, the men come back, but that movement has happened. And even though they get pushed back somewhat, they've still moved they've moved the needle a little bit further. So in this weird sort of way, war, which is devastating for men back then when there was only men in the military, for women, they get a little bit more than they had before. So I always find that fascinating about war. In my particular novel, the two sisters mainly are processing their own grief. So they think that their only sibling and both their parents have died, and that both their parents have died. So they are processing grief in two different ways. And just to your point, I think that women who, like in A League of Their Own, they're doing something for themselves during wartime, but it kind of comes with a cost, right? Not just what happens to them later, which is they have to go back to the world before they got to play baseball, but also there's a little bit of guilt, I think, that the rest of the world is at war and they're doing this fun thing that they love.
That's I haven't even thought about that part too. And there's also, this, when we talk about there's, your heroines get what they want, but it comes at a cost. I think that's true in so many spaces. If a woman wants to exert herself or express herself, the idea, I don't know if you ever get this, but people tell me that I'm intimidating, and I do love the memes. I'm not intimidating. You are intimidated. But the cost of that is sort of having to walk through the world of that balance, of like, do I try to be more attractive? If I dress down, do I not? There is a cost every single day for us, isn't there?
Yeah, there totally is. And the only way is to put on blinders, because I think for so many of us, we take in the world, right? So we take in those haters and their comments, and we feel it. And that's a good thing, but it doesn't help us move forward. So sometimes you just have to put on the blinders, know that the haters are out there, and just move forward with what you're doing anyway, and try your best to set it aside what other people think. And it's difficult, and talking about new writers, as we were talking about before, especially have to do that because writing is a vulnerable thing, but it's important. It's important to express yourself, and it's important to be creative.
I agree completely. Well, speaking of which, a writing career or launching one, I haven't had a chance to ask you a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up, my friend?
I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. Yeah. My dad and my sister still live there. And then I went back east to college, as they say. Like, to me, it's not back east, it's just east. Mm-hmm. Then I moved out to California, and I've been here ever since.
Wow. Where'd you go to school? Back east? Oh, Vassar.
I went to Vassar. Yeah.
Oh.
And then a bunch of my buddies moved to Berkeley, California, and I followed them. And then eventually I made my way across the bridge to San Francisco, and I just love it here.
When my son was looking at schools, I took him on the East Coast and the West Coast. We had a whole plan of, we did like small college, big town, big college, small, like all the variations.
Yes.
Stanford, I had never been there. Holy moly. I mean, even just like that drive down that's...
I know. It's crazy. I don't know if I should say this, but I sometimes think of those Star Trek worlds where everything is like so beautiful and manicured on the surface, and then there's some like horrible thing going on.
Yes.
Nothing horrible is going on in Stanford. Let me say that I know of, but it does have this like beautiful, like almost otherworldly look to it.
Yes, I agree. I mean, the whole area. When I was at the airport when we got there, the guy asked if I was okay with driving a Dodge Charger, and I don't know why my brain was like, "Oh my God, no! It's San Francisco." My mouth went, "Sure," and so stopping on an incline, and I'm like, "It's too heavy of a car." But I'll never forget driving the Golden Gate Bridge at night in the fog, and just hoping I stayed in a straight line. That's
yeah. Oh yeah. I still have a little bit of a about that. Yeah.
I have to imagine that environment, how wonderful to have, like, I would imagine it helps you creatively to sort of have that energy, whether it's the ocean.
That is very true. And in fact, when I get stuck in my writing, the thing that my go-to thing is to go down to the ocean. They have a beautiful bicycle path that you can walk, and I just walk it until I think of how to get myself out of whatever bind I'm in, and it always works. Wow. That's the crazy thing. I always get ideas just walking by the ocean.
Well, find your path to walk, folks, to be inspired, to find a way through, to solve a problem. I love that idea. It has really been a pleasure talking to award-winning author Martha Conway. We Meet Apart.
Thank you so much.
Of course. It's now out. 2 sisters, 2 Irelands, and a question that is a little too close to home for a lot of us. If you lost the people you love in one reality, how hard would you fight to keep them in another? Find the book wherever you buy them, including Barnes & Noble, your local bookstores. Start there, of course, and Amazon, bookshop.com, which I love, bookshops.com, I believe, and they support your local bookstore. So it's a great way to go. And again, you can also find Martha at marthaconway.com. She's also on Substack along with us at Monaco Brewing Company. She's writing about the craft if you want more. So thank you. This was an absolute joy to meet you, and I look forward to talking to you again, Martha.
Thank you, Patti. This has been so much fun. What a pleasure.
Oh, thank you. Well, historians, the broads taking on talking about stories.
Yeah. We got to stay together.
Exactly. Have a great night, everybody. Love you, Lady B.